Welcome back everybody. In this video we're going to take the paint from this condition to this condition with a two-step paint correction. So if you want to learn how to use a machine polisher to cut and polish your paint to remove 80 to 90% of the swirls and scratches, then stick with this video. So for starters, my paint is pretty trashed. I use it a lot for work and I put mats there, I put bags there, I put tools and products there. So it's a little bit hard to see because of the color is white, but I do put a beading on it on a weekly basis. So it does need to be polished out. If it was red, black, blue, it'd be much easier to see without having to really mess with the camera settings and the lighting. Please don't get too caught on the exact tools and products that I'm using. I'll link them down below, but I'm not going to worry about telling you those because there's so many options on the market. Just check the description box for those links. Since my vehicle is not that dirty, I'm just using Optimum No Rinse as a waterless wash, and I'm just going to quickly wipe it down. Next, we're going to move on to the claying phase, and my vehicle also wasn't too heavily contaminated, so it was just a quick pass. On the washing and claying process, I'm not too worried about being super gentle because we're about to polish the paint. So any slight marring that I'm putting in due to the washing or the claying is going to be easily removed in the next step. So here, I usually go for speed and efficiency, not so much being extra gentle with the paint. Now, if your paint does have a lot of above surface contaminants, you'll feel the rough texture and you'll have to spend a lot more time to make it feel super smooth. So if you have that rough texture, if you feel that grit on the paint, then make sure you're using a lot of lubrication and using your clay mitt or clay bar, whatever you're using, to remove all the rough texture from the paint. Now let's move on to the cutting phase. I'll be using the Greats Garage 6-inch polisher, the 8mm throw. I'm going to use Oberk's cutting disc with Oberk's compound called Cut. Now here I'm going to apply the product onto the pad, spread it around so the pad is lubricated. Then put around 3-4 small dots on the pad and spread it around. Before turning on the machine, I'm just going to spread it around a little bit to make it easier to spread. Make sure you're working in small areas. You don't want to go too wide where you're overextending yourself and you're putting more fatigue or strain on your body. You want to be comfortable when you're polishing in small sections. Since this hood is rather small, I can just about do almost half the hood and still be very comfortable just because the hood itself is so small. If you're on a larger panel, you might want to break it up into 4 or 5 different sections. So I'm going to spread the product around by dabbing it on the paint, and then I turn on the polisher to around speed 3 and spread it around, then up it up to speed 5, and that's my working speed. I'm using slow to moderate speed just because I know my paint, it's on the it's more to soft to medium, but kind of leaning more to the soft side on the clear coat. So I don't need to go too slow and too aggressive with the down pressure on the polisher, but I'm using light to medium pressure with slow to somewhat not too slow arm speed. If your vehicle has harder clear coat, you will have to go with slower arm speed and more down pressure to make sure you're really cutting the paint and removing as many swirls and scratches. And here are the first initial results. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm not trying to go for absolute perfection because it's going to be beat up in the next coming week. If you still want to work on a few areas, it's just about reapplying some product and working on those specific isolated areas that you think can come out better. So now let's move on to the next section. But before we do that, we need to make sure we're always working with a clean pad. If you have an air compressor, you can just use that to blow all the compound and gunk out of the pad. If not, like I don't have an air compressor, just turn on the polisher. If you have a brush, use that to brush as much of the product and just any buildup off the pad. or just use a towel. You can even spray some clay lube or water on there to help you clean off the pad. So now applying a few 3-4 dots onto the pad, and we're going to repeat the same process on the next section. And I'm just making sure that I'm in shot there for that funny look to the camera, but I'm going to spread it around. And you don't always have to start with a low setting. You can, instead of going from 3 and spread it around and then go to 5, you can just start off straight from 5. It's up to you. Now you want to make sure you go in overlapping patterns. You want to make sure you go both up and down and side to side to ensure you're getting full coverage of the section that you're working. If you're in a controlled environment like this, in a garage, in a shop, maybe not with AC, but at least the sun's not heating up on you and the panel, then you have a lot more working time. It's easier to remove the polish once you're done. If you are out in the sun, you might have to work in smaller sections. You might have to continually check the paint and make sure it's not overheating. So if you're working in a cold environment or just in a controlled environment, then life is much easier when you're correcting paint. Again, every paint is going to be different. I know I don't have to move like a sloth in this cutting phase to remove 85-90% of the swirls and scratches because the paint is soft. This might differ greatly for you. And just real quick, this is how I'm getting that bird's eye view. I just put the tripod on a bench and a chair. So this is the result of the compounding. It came out pretty well. Like I said, if you want to get more swirls and scratches out on specific areas or you're not happy, it's just about going over those specific sections or the entire panel over again. And now let's move on to the polishing phase. So we're gonna go ahead and remove the cutting disc, of course, and replace that with a polishing bat supplied by Oberk. And as far as the product choice for polishing, I'm gonna go ahead and use, guess what? Oberk's polish as well. So we're keeping it within the Oberk family in this video. Now, a great tip is make sure the bottle is open before you try to use it. And you're going to spread it around the pad, massage the product into the pad so you make sure you prime the entire pad before polishing. And instead of using my finger, I'm using the bottle itself to spread it around, but that wasn't really working out, so I said, okay, you know what, let me just go ahead and use my hand and spread it around. Now I'm just going to put 4 dots onto the pad. And then we're going to get to the polishing. Now because the polishing phase is a bit different depending on the paint that you have, I'm going to spread it around, of course. And then I'm going to work it on speed 4, I want to say. I'm going to use, my hand speed is not going to be as slow because I already corrected and removed most of the swirls and scratches. So here is just to refine the slight haze that may have been caused from the cutting phase. And because my paint is not super soft, but soft, then I don't need to go too slow with the arm movement because it's gonna polish out fine. And I'm using light to moderate pressure, more on the lighter side of pressure. And since my hood is rather small, and because the polish is going on super easy, and because there's not much gunk being pulled off, I can basically do half the hood with one pass and be absolutely okay. you're still gonna do the cross hatching pattern. You're still gonna go up and down, and side to side to make sure you're covering the full section that you're working. But here, it's just faster arm movement, not as much pressure. It's still gonna come out great. Now, since I only have to work a smaller section on the panel, I'm not even gonna bother to clean the pad because not much gunk came off. I didn't use much product, so I'm just gonna go ahead and polish out that top portion as well before even wiping it down. If I was outside and it was super hot and the panel was hot, then I would go ahead and wipe off that section first and then move on to the next section. That way the polish isn't drying up on me and making it more difficult to remove. And let's go ahead and check out the results. And there we go. It's looking a lot better. You could definitely get more out of it, but I'm pretty satisfied with these results. And let's go ahead and check the results. As you can see, there's still some isolated scratches there. Just because you do a 2-step or even a 3-step doesn't necessarily mean every last scratch and swirl is going to come out. Maybe some need sanding, maybe some are too far gone to actually remove. It's just going to depend. But as you can see here on the before and after, there's still a significant difference. So I'm happy with the results. And the last step is to remove any oils or polish that still may be remaining on the paint. This is from Malco, called their Epic Paint Prep. And we just want to see if there's any hidden swirls and scratches. I don't have a after on this just because it was, we already saw the condition, nothing really changed. We actually removed all the swirls and scratches. And you also want to do this for your next step where you're going to apply your protection, whether it's a spray wax, whether it's a wax, whether it's a sealant, whether it's a coating. You want to make sure the paint is completely, as they say, naked so you can apply it properly. Here, I'm just going to be using Greatest Garage Best of Show spray wax. Not too worried since I only did half the hood. And I'm going to work it in with a towel. I'm not worried about putting anything else on it just because I'm not worried about that. And bada bing bada boom, we are done here with the polishing. Now, of course, doing this over the entire vehicle is what takes a lot of time because some sections might be worse than others in terms of the condition that it's in, which will have to make you do more passes or slow down your arm speed. So doing the entire vehicle is a lot different because it's just much bigger. But as you can see, the results are there. Now make sure that if you're doing this for a customer or just yourself, make sure that, of course, it's going to look a lot better, but also make sure you actually feel the paint because it's going to feel so much glossier and smooth, probably more so than what you or the customer has ever felt before, as that's an added value to the total experience of getting the car corrected. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, leave those in the comment section down below. If you want to see the list of tools and products that I use, check the description box for that and those guides. Other than that, I'll see you on the next one.